So let's continue with our eye on this. The Independent Electoral Commission announcing that voter and candidate registration for the 2021 elections will be reopened. This follows the Constitutional Court's decision to dismiss the IEC's bid to postpone the elections to a later date, possibly early 2022. Now, the Constitutional Court has ordered the IEC to keep to the predetermined schedule for the 2021 municipal elections, which cannot be held any later than the 1st of November. We speak now to Thembelani Mazibuko, researcher at the Electoral Institute for Sustainable Democracy in Africa. There's been a lot of talk about the holding of free and fair elections. Thembelani, let's just understand what is involved in that. So the electoral timetable spans 85 days and lays down key dates and deadlines for various electoral milestones until voting day. Take us through the salient points of what is before the IEC now.
Right now, what is before the IEC is essentially the ramifications of the judgment of the ruling, which announced, made the election date null and the proclamation null and void, and thereby which necessitated a new election date. Therefore, what is going to be needed is a new, quote-unquote, truncated electoral timetable to accommodate the ramifications of a new proclamation date. So what that means is that there's going to be a new voter registration, and with that, candidate nomination. Why? Because those people who have just been allowed to vote will have a constitutional right to stand as candidates, and hence the IEC announced yesterday that they, in addition to opening up the voter registration, they are also going to reopen candidate nominations, because these new voters have a right to stand as candidates in the communities that they are registering to vote in.
So, Thembelani, let's speak about this truncated voting timetable and the logistics, the practicalities of it. So we're not just talking about the preparation of voting material. What needs to happen for people who haven't been behind the scenes?
A lot needs to happen. Of course, it's the organization, it's the IEC collecting voter material. But in addition to that, there has to be voter registration. People need to register in order to vote, and also candidates as well. So yeah, it's both the registration and it's also the behind the scenes, the IEC. And by the way, the IEC has stated that they are ready to hold these elections. So it's not that they are not ready. From a technical point of view, they are ready. But the issue is, are the elections going to be free and fair in the coming months, or are they going to be free and fair later, when in a possible next year when there's less COVID? So that is what is confronting the IEC right now. Of course, the courts have ruled that the elections must go on, but the IEC has also said, technically, organizationally, with regards to everything, they are ready to hold these elections.
Thembelani, just take us through the prism through which, say, an election observer would see elections and a political party in terms of procedural fairness, freeness and fairness, because that may be lost by the wayside depending from what a political party, partisan affiliation leads one to believe, the perceptions around electoral integrity.
So in our organization, we conduct a lot of EOM missions, election observation missions, where we go observe elections all over the African continent. And what is stressed in these EOM missions is that it's important to understand the electoral laws of the country. It is important to read the electoral code, the code of conduct, the Constitution, as well as the values that these documents contain. Because in addition to the technical, what is written, the formulaic stuff, behind that is a set of values. And when organizations such as us, whether it's local observers whether it's international organizations from the United States or Europe, they need to understand the electoral law as well as the spirit of the electoral law. And only once you understand that are you then able to make informed decisions. When we go, for example, on missions, we speak to various actors, both ruling and opposition parties, NGOs, media, or stakeholders, in order to get a more nuanced view. And it's important that for example, observers, they do not perhaps overemphasize a certain narrative by people, as you said, who have vested interests in the outcome or in decisions being made a particular way.
And you've mentioned a very important thing, Thembelani, that the electoral laws of a country are not the same from one nation to the next, and it's important that people understand the minutiae detail of those electoral laws, but also including the fact that there's such a huge difference between election observation and election monitoring, as in the ability to interfere in the electoral process.
Exactly. So all those things have to be understood. They are nuanced. What can an observer do and what can an observer not do? And it's important when people make proclamations, when observers come, that they understand their role in terms of what they can do, which is set out in the code of conduct for election observers, for example. So all those things, the understanding of the law, are very important, and that is why it's important for opinion gatekeepers, for example, the media, journalists, to be able to filter out the noise, to be able to understand the values as well as the formulaic law, in order to have a nuanced and contextual understanding behind why certain decisions may be made.
Thembelani Mazibuko, thank you so much for speaking to us. He's a researcher at the Electoral Institute for Sustainable Democracy in Africa, making a very important point, that of we can't prejudge these elections on whether they are free and fair until after the fact, because there are so many boxes that need to be ticked on the, as you said, the formulaic aspects of electoral integrity.